Yeah, why don't you suck Luigi's dick, huh? He's on the same par, isn't he? Right, I don't know what you mean, Bromy. Migrants tunnel under U.S. Marines. Get deported immediately. Say it louder for the people in the back.
Down along the southern
Don't
border.
you love
Agents say
Luigi?
smugglers
You
are now becoming
fuckwit.
more sophisticated, now using tunnels as a broader network of illegal entries along the southern border.
So the gangs who were making bank at our southern border are now changing up their tactics. The latest of which involves tunneling under the 12,000 troops recently deployed to lock down the border like never before. But there's a problem because these thugs are learning the US military's pretty good at finding threats, whether they're 50 feet deep or 50 miles offshore in a tiny
God
raft.
damn.
And
They're
anyone
all
our
on that
troops
goddamn
catch
little
now
boat.
gets deported instantly.
But the first time you've actually ever been in one of these things in there, the first thing that's going to get you is the smell. 100% humidity and, about 90 degrees. You instantly start perspiring.
The journey through the seemingly endless tunnel is a long and daunting one for special agents,
the cartel
not knowing
tunnels.
what or who they might encounter. As CBP says it was a route used by transnational criminal organizations.
Hands up! Hands up!
The Coast Guard has been busy with interdictions this month. 31 migrants packed onto a small fishing boat. 24 Chinese migrants hiding out in an engine compartment.
God damn.
And look at this. A Chinese migrant found miles
Heyo.
offshore on a paddleboard
Heyo.
with a suitcase strapped
What
to
the
it.
fuck? Is a suitcase strapped to it?
moving in a certain direction. If they're moving northbound, it might give us an indication of that we should probably go ahead and take a
Jesus
look.
Christ, these
These
fucking
individuals are looking
people,
to
man.
completely evade law enforcement authorities. He has no idea, though, that the eye in the sky is watching his every move. He then brings
Yeah,
up two
Jesus
migrants
Christ.
up from those bushes, and they are going to make a run into that residential neighborhood. They don't spot any law enforcement authorities, so they believe they got away.
Oh boy.
So the US government is using drones to spot people emerging from tunnels like this along the border. But what nobody's talking about is these gangs are willing to do pretty much anything, no matter how creative or dangerous, to cross into America. As their $13 billion a year smuggling business is reeling from the largest border crackdown in US history.
I mean,
and
they
with
gotta
over
make money,
12,000
right?
active duty troops setting up barricades and patrolling the skies, streets, and rivers, America's front door isn't wide open like it used to be, which means smuggling people in by the thousands for massive sums of money is no longer possible. And that's why they're using tunnels to sneak across. The old ways of doing things no longer work as well as they used to. Exploiting gaps in the wall is almost impossible now that they're all being closed. Rafts are useless because troops now patrol waterways and rivers and brazenly walking up to the wall and cutting through it. Well, that now results in the smugglers getting immediately arrested and deported.
Smuggling?
And that brings us to the real reason why gangs and smugglers are now changing up their tactics, going underground in a desperate last-ditch attempt to get through. People still want access to America, and they've still got the money to pay for it, with some forking over top dollar to be among the few smuggled through a secret network of tunnels they've been promised our troops haven't discovered yet, with some people now paying as much as $18,000 to be brought into our country.
doubled it,
A process which is now 1,000
Look at these
times
Mexicans,
harder
am I right,
than it used to
Dream?
be.
Take a look at this. Border Patrol and federal contractors were trying to fix a
Oh,
hole
I
in the
mean,
wall
it's
that smugglers cut
Asians,
when a huge surge of
Mexicans,
illegal immigrants came pushing
Venezuelans,
through that gap. There's a human
Haitians.
smuggler dressed in black. He kind of just gives us a shrug and then salutes
Latino.
us.
Yeah, this
saying,
guy.
"Yeah, there's nothing they can do about it."
Can you believe that? That's how
Latinos,
easy people were able to get into
right.
our country just 1 year ago. Smugglers could just walk up to the wall and make their own door, knowing that there was no law enforcement presence there to stop them. In
Even
fact,
their
they were
fucking
rewarded
kids are
if they got
coming in,
caught
like,
because
you
they could say they were
dumbasses.
seeking asylum and then they'd be released into our country. But as you're about to see, the reason tunnels are springing up is because anyone along the surface of the border is going to get caught and turned around within minutes.
He has no idea, though, that the eye in the sky is watching his every move. He then brings up two migrants up from those bushes, and they are going to make a run into that residential neighborhood. They don't spot any law enforcement authorities, so they believe they got away. But troopers were monitoring his every movement, and the drones actually were able to communicate that information right back to Border Patrol agents on the ground patrolling nearby. As we were there, Border Patrol agents did rush to the scene. They did arrest a female migrant. Now, several other agents did jump into the bushes attempting.
So the smugglers in the raft, they were able to escape escape and get back to Mexico, but the people they brought in, they were spotted and troopers were on them within seconds. And that's why these guys are digging tunnels now. There's no way to hide in the bushes with a camo t-shirt on like
Well,
that
yeah, they got
smuggler
fucking
had,
thermals.
thinking that
Like,
it's
what?
gonna work. You can be seen 24 hours
Yeah, when
a
it's
day
nighttime, they
out
got
on the
thermals.
border.
When
Our
it's
troops have night vision. And unlike the last 4 years, there will be an immediate law enforcement response
yeah,
once
night
people
vision
are
or
spotted coming
thermals.
through. But as you're about to see, the reason these cartels are now digging tunnels is because it's not just their customers who are getting arrested instantly. It's the gang members as well. Their organizations are being dismantled and taken down.
When we go into one of these structures and we consider it, it's something that's normal day at the office, essentially. But the first time you've actually ever been in one of these things in there, the first thing that's going to get you is the smell. 100% humidity and, you know, about 90 degrees. So that's the first thing that hits you is the temperature and the humidity on top of that. You instantly start perspiring and you're essentially soaking wet. Crawling on hands and knees for, you know, essentially a mile back and forth.
That's insane. Look at that. There's some water in that tunnel. These guys are crawling. These are life-threatening conditions. And if these
And block the
troops
tunnels,
are
they
having
can't.
trouble navigating one of these places, don't think for a second that people who are civilians and come from regular life are going to be able to trek on their hands and knees safely every single time this happens. And with the looks of some of these shady operations, I have no doubt there are extreme circumstances that befall people making their way through that we never hear about on mainstream news. Instead, we're told that these smugglers are doing their victims a compassionate favor,
with that
risking their
attitude? Are
lives
you
to bring
fucking
them into the
stupid?
country so that after they get here and they're in debt to these smugglers, they can destroy them even further.
But it's not just rafts anymore that agents have to
You're gonna
watch
fuck
for.
up the whole
Smugglers have now
terrain if
taken
you
their
do that.
operations underground. Along the banks of the Rio Grande, we actually approached a makeshift tunnel that smugglers had been using and building
barely
out.
see it.
They actually even installed a pipe before agents were able.
Wow, look at that. So it's like hidden in there under the bushes.
Bruh, it ain't that
and people
hard. I
just
played a
suddenly
lot of
emerge from that
Minecraft. You're
thing
not very
and then
smart,
try to
are you?
make it across the border. This will get them a lot closer, even if it's not a tunnel that goes directly from point A to point B. And
You don't
apparently
know
this
how
particular
far these
tunnel was
tunnels
even
go, and you don't know
reinforced
where
with a
they
drain pipe so
go
that it
under.
wouldn't collapse and could
And
be
then you're gonna
reused
collapse
over and over
all
again.
the
But
whole
shockingly,
tunnel?
some of the tunnels these gangs were
Dude,
using
think
weren't
about
built
that.
by the gangs themselves, but actually by
You
our
might do
government,
more
by
damage
the
than
United
good.
States.
Then smugglers also are now using a drainage system in that same area that's now Border Patrol agents were able to block off with a cage. You could also see fresh cuts that were being made along that drainage system and the nearby tunnels. Clear signs that smugglers are testing.
Also,
weak
you
points
might be
along the
damaging
border.
infrastructure
Smugglers
if you
never
just
stop along this
destroyed
system.
all
They're
the
also digging
tunnels,
out
'cause
makeshift
it looks
tunnels,
like they-
along that drainage system, just finding any entry point. to
There's like
bypass Border
pipelines and
Patrol
shit right
agents. Take a
there.
listen.
So these smugglers are now using infrastructure that already exists,
Yeah.
and they're repurposing it so that they can bring people through that infrastructure like a massive underground pipe or sewer
So,
system
yeah, not a
into
good
the country.
idea.
And these guys are relentless. They'll exploit whatever weak point they can find, even if it's only temporary. For example, when security was light last year, if they saw border wall construction going on, they'd assault that position and exploit it before the work gets finished. This is why you see the smugglers sending scouts across to try and find ways into the country for their customers.
Yep.
And apparently we now have tunnels everywhere leading to multiple points in the country that they could use at any time, depending on where they see troops and where they don't. And since these gang members are armed, their ability to pop up from the ground at any point, at any moment, puts our troops in grave danger, especially when these gang members have their own fake buildings that they use as spying stations to scout out the border in advance.
These scouts and cartel members actually use homes and buildings along the banks of
I
the
mean,
Rio
how
Grande
else are
as
they
their
gonna
vantage
get
points
people
to
through?
always be constantly
They gotta
monitoring the movements
keep watch.
of Border Patrol agents. Now, the second floor of that home actually had a one-way mirror, which I found extremely interesting. This allowed scouts in that home to watch agents while also going undetected.
I think this up here looks
Yeah.
like that one-way mirror. It looks like a piece of glass that you can just look through, but you can't see in.
Can't see
and with
in,
the
yeah.
gang members being up high like that, they can see for quite a ways and check out where Border Patrol might be. Again, they only need a couple of minutes to get across, so if they see that Border Scouts are busy doing something else or they're far enough down the river, they might try and make a break for it. But
Yes.
as we've just seen, this doesn't work anymore. And even the tunnels these gangs are creating aren't enough to keep people out of the clutches of the U.S. military, who's there to find them and keep the country safe.
Oh, it
And for
looks
that
like they
reason,
were
some of these gangs
stashing
have
stuff
totally
to
given
get
up trying
ready,
to
and
enter
then
the country
they got
by
found
land,
out.
which is why they're now trying to come across the ocean.
Hands up! Hands up!
The Coast Guard has been busy with interdictions this month.
Hey, here are your homies, mate.
31 migrants packed onto a small
They're
fishing
getting
boat.
shipped back.
24 Chinese migrants hiding
Hombre.
out in an engine compartment. And look at this. A Chinese migrant found miles offshore on a paddleboard
Bunch of
with a
puta
suitcase
pendejos.
strapped to.
Oh, man. So there's a lot of water around our country, and this is just another thing smugglers can sell to people who want to come across when a tiny tunnel somewhere might not be an option. Look at all this coastline right here. You could get a boat into the Gulf of America here and try to make your way to any of the coastlines in America. But look, the closest crossing is actually right over here
would
between
be Bahamas.
the Bahamas and Florida. And look, the length is 53 miles. Apparently, this is an incredibly dangerous crossing, but on a calm day with the right equipment, it's doable. And perhaps what you have, when you saw that little guy out on his tiny little raft, he was probably brought close to shore from like a mothership or something, and then he was let make the journey the rest of the way, which I don't think worked. But what's fascinating is that even though the best way to stop these water crossings is the same way you spot the tunnels, by air, just as the southern border has seen travelers from all across the world trying to use it to access America, the same thing's going on with these water crossings. There are people from everywhere trying to come across.
The migrants are from different countries, nearby like Cuba and Haiti, but also far away, like China.
Well, we've had an 8,000% increase in the number of Chinese migrants that have been caught actually around the Florida coast. That's just going to increase because
Chinese migrants caught on the Florida coast. Interesting. So I guess they're going to like the Bahamas, right? And then going out and then taking a boat or something.
as enforcement becomes
makeshift
harder
boat
and tougher to get into in the southern border, you're going to see more and more Chinese and other migrants trying to flow into Florida.
So these cartels, they're still running their smuggling business. They've still got customers from all across the globe. But the thing that doesn't make sense to me is why on earth are people trying to sneak into the country and enter illegally now? This video was posted just a few days ago. Obviously, this is still happening. But now, if folks come into the country, they can't seek asylum in America anymore. If they get caught, they're going to...
Yeah, it is strange. So I wonder who's telling these people, hey, maybe if we can... like, there's no way. Like, and these people probably paid a cartel member or someone to smuggle them over. So it's like, you guys paid these guys, you guys paid criminals money at the threat of probably might be being killed. And then you guys make it by chance here. And then you're just gonna get rejected and deported because you're fucking retarded. What? Why?
Immediately be told to leave. And look at this. Overall crossings are way down. The detention centers along
who the fuck are telling these people to fucking break the law? Like, what? Stop breaking the fucking law.
Border, they're pretty much empty now. Apparently there's nobody in these holding facilities, but there are a lot of people who are now getting arrested. Here's a photo of people in a jail in Lower Manhattan, actually, in New York City. And since the asylum crisis is now over and people aren't allowed to wait here and see what happens, most of the folks who would have come across aren't anymore because there's no longer a legal pathway
they shouldn't
to them
come across anymore. It's
life
so
in America
dangerous.
after their case finishes. And what that means is the only
Why would you
people
do
coming
that?
across now have to have the goal of living in America illegally for their entire tenure here. These are not people who want to come across and do it the right way. And since they're paying thousands of dollars for this opportunity, that can only mean one thing. There's got to be some plan, because why else would people pay so much money
I mean,
to
there
go
has
and
to
do
be
this?
some plan. Why else?
And the migrant ocean crossings are not just on the east coast of the United States. The Coast Guard spotting 20 migrants in a small
they're
boat
being
21
told to
miles off
do
the
this
coast of
too for some
California.
right. It's
17
like
males and 3 females from Mexico and China were trying to
Mexico and
sneak in
China.
by
Well.
sea.
Good question, Eddie.
But even if you can't see them flying high above
Interesting.
the ocean, the Coast Guard
Yeah, it's
is
like, what the
watching.
fuck are you guys
And when they
thinking?
spot migrants, they dispatch Coast Guard cutters to intervene.
This is why California has such a massive problem with illegal immigration. They're a sanctuary state, and there's nothing stopping people from getting in a boat and coming across, or at least there hasn't been for quite some time. And look over here. If you're in Mexico, it's really not that far at all to just get in a boat and
then
make your
just
way from one shore
shore
to
to the
another shore.
next, yeah.
And you can do this in a very small boat that's not even a seaworthy, ocean-going vessel. Some little thing with a motor will do it. You're not out there that far. And people
Correct.
have the goal of sticking close to the coast to try and get in under the cover of darkness, which again doesn't really work because
yeah.
Border Patrol can see at night.
Yeah, they
but
could
folks
see.
still try because once
But
they're
it's
inside
too-
America, they can attempt to live the American dream illegally in cities and states that are pushing this
Yeah,
kind of thing.
it doesn't
However,
make
not all
sense to
crossing
do
routes
this
are
because they
100%
don't-
smuggler-proof, not the
Like, what are these people going to do when they get in? They're not going to be able to find any work. Unless there's people who are illegally allowing them to work. Which is just like, that's fucking stupid. Because if you get caught, you're going to fucking jail. Like, what are you doing?
water, not the underground, and not even the actual ground. Which is why one rancher in Texas has had to build Mad Max-style gates on his property to stop smugglers from ramming through those gates.
Yeah, and like
getting
these
into
guys don't have any sort of identification, right? It makes no like who's telling these people to do it? It makes no sense to do this shit. Literally. They have no identification, no money. They probably don't speak a lick of English. Right? How are they going to find work? And then what are they going to put on governmental forums? Are they just gonna fucking lie on the forums? Like, what? What are these people doing?
our country. Look at this thing.
A spiked gate with a special locking mechanism meant to take out a radiator if a vehicle tries to push it open.
Oh, yeah.
It's all to keep smugglers moving people off of his land.
I refer to this as like
Oh,
a
yeah.
chess game, and this is just the last move on our side, and there'll be a counter move on the other side.
How long has that chess match been going?
Probably 20 years.
Wow.
An expensive
Yeah.
and dangerous game for both sides.
Oh,
How
yeah.
much is that going to set you back to get all of your gates
A gate
up
like
to
this would probably be $2,000 or $3,000.
So here's the thing. Once Border Patrol or whatever apparatuses we have at the border to keep the country secure fail because smugglers are always trying to get around them, it's up to people to secure their own property because they're the
Correct.
last line of defense
Yeah,
for what they
'cause
own.
they
That's
get-
why this guy's got
they
these
get
crazy
attacked
gates.
right
They're
after.
designed to puncture the hood of a car that's trying to ram them and force them open. That's going to destroy the radiator. The car's liquid cooled. It's going to overheat. And
Right.
apparently this rancher says he's had problems with people trying to cross his property for decades. And that's because up until now, the border's been pretty much wide open. We've never had a wall. We've never had actual security, which is somewhat astounding. But what's really crazy is these gangs, they're getting so aggressive that this guy right here, he's actually had to bulletproof his house.
Too. He has to pick up all the trash migrants leave behind so his cattle don't eat it. People have stolen
Yeah.
his vehicles. He had to fully armor this house because people broke in through the walls and the roof.
That's
Damn.
crazy. This guy had to reinforce his house because people kept breaking into
Yeah,
it.
that's kinda
And apparently
fucked up.
smugglers are discharging weapons on his property all the time. That's insane. And this never would have made the news up until the last few months. And that's crazy because these are the people that we've been losing this border battle to for years. These dangerous criminals who just see an opportunity to make money and don't care at all about our laws or the law-abiding people that live in this country. Nor do they care for
Yeah,
their
so
own
like, hey,
customers.
what's
The
up,
people are
homie?
shoving into tunnels and bringing across in tiny boats, some of whom get held for ransom and are exploited in various ways to earn back that money once they get here. What do you think? How can the U.S.
Yeah, it's
completely
like that
secure
too.
its
It's like
borders? Are tunnels always going to
they
be an
they
effective
didn't
way
really
that
get out
smugglers
of
can temporarily enter the
they're not out of the woods yet because they illegally came in. They're probably some of these people are probably gang members or entered the gang or have to pay a debt to the gang. So it's like, what do you? It's just a colossal fuck up on all these people. Just cascading negative things after negative things. Like, jeez. These people need to fucking stop.
country? Is there a way to close those off?
Stop
What other
breaking the
plans would you
goddamn
make
rules.
to lock it down
You can
completely? Let me know. Thank you
literally
so
do
much
it
for
the
watching.
legal
I'll see you
way
in the next video.
and be okay. It's gonna take some time, but you breaking the rules like this just means that you're going to be exiled if you get caught. Because that's how that shit works. You get caught when you broke the rules. They're not going to allow you in. Because you already fucking broke the rules.